All right, we're back in here and I am starting the podcast once again. So it's been a rough week, guys, and if I didn't have you, I don't know what I would have done. So I just need to say that up front. I don't know what I would have done with all of you, like just all of my dubs just surrounding me and making sure I was okay. You are the best part of everything here, and that's why I do this for you. Um, but yeah, we're going into the X Files because the guy that I love requested this, and he said, "Hey, you should do a podcast on this and all things, you know, underground and government sanctioned and uh, what are the X Files and aliens? Are they real? Is it, and the thing is that, he went far beyond that with his little flow charts and whatever. And he meaning my Douglas, and I miss him. And you guys miss him too, because you got to meet him for a couple of minutes. Um, and I'm just going to say this about it. I think that he has pretty much gone beyond the boundaries of Earth's, rules and gravity and, destiny and, soul travel and the whole thing. And I think that he was the absolute perfect match for me as far as what I do and how I think and how I never think anything is impossible, how all things are possible. And I never get deterred by that. And I never thought he had left this earth plane ever. So I'm still maintaining that. And there are other elements of this that you guys will know later that will be shared once everything is all said and done. I'll just say that about that. So yeah, the X Files, which I'm sorry, but when I was watching that show, I just I memorized every word. I just, it was part of my journey into all things unknown. So, and I posted right before the podcast began about Stargate and that program and how I was invited to perhaps do a show with someone who was very much involved with the original Stargate and, how we could continue. So I found myself, I was writing evidence and um, I just needed a minute to decide what the next step was. So I didn't go pursue that. And I think he needed me in order to propel the project because at that point I was being offered other series from not only the United States, but I mean, Canada was contacting me, the UK, um, Japan Japan is still contacting me to do shows over there. I just, I tend to psychically look at my opportunities and the things on my timeline and whether or not that is the most efficient way of delivering what I need to do as far as a legacy, teaching you guys, getting you all prepared for the next step. It's not that I was lazy or scared or anything. I just didn't see that it was my next step. So, it's nice to be asked, but it has to be the exact right thing. It has to resonate with where I am in my learning curve here as far as the universe and what my role is in integrating and teaching you guys to assimilate these lessons. And I just felt like it was too much of a sacrifice. I was dropping the ball by going to do that and being on TV again. It just didn't make any sense. It was propelling other people's careers, other countries' television networks. It just wasn't meant to be as far as, what I saw as a valuable resource. Maybe one day I'll do that again. I have no aversion to TV. It's just that at that time, it was just TV for TV and making driving it. Right now, we're in a time in history where we have to pay attention to, you know, what's going on, number one. And number two, how we don't let our fear guide our psychic steps, when each of us is psychic to a degree. And I just feel like right now I would be abandoning what I agreed to do. If I went and just, oh, I have to go do TV again, and you guys can watch and you can be my fans and shower me with praise and whatever. That's not why I did it in the first place. I did this because it was it was opening up a world and opening up your eyes to different dimensions. And no one had quite done it the way that I was planning on doing it. I wasn't going to just give you a bunch of paranormal jargon and phrases that you guys could swallow and then, oh, she's so good at what she does. No. I had to teach you how to arm yourselves with that type of knowledge going forward so that you could affect others that are in your little sphere. And this would actually help raise the level of collective consciousness where maybe, just maybe, we're going to avoid World War III, maybe. So let me introduce myself because I do this backwards, guys. Usually people, when they come on to host something, they say, okay, this is my name and this is what I do. I, I'm more about just diving in. So my name is Carla Barron and I am a psychic, a medium, a psychic profiler. I did coin that term and I have proof. And I was responsible for a lot of, in the public eye at least, joining Psychic Plus Crime. So I wanted to get with you guys just to teach you how this works. Remote viewing was part of what I was doing long before Haunting Evidence and long before I was doing the pilot to Psychic Detectives. I was on ABC Primetime's 2020. I was with one of my first cases. And, I know everyone in the paranormal TV world. And we all sort of knew each other and worked together and networked. And Ryan Buell, who did Paranormal State, actually was working with me on my very first case, the first national case. So most of my work, because I never left my apartment to do most of this stuff, was remote viewing. And I was ideal for that because I didn't need to actually be in the location to see what I had to see. In fact, being in the actual location would distract me from the actual truth of the circumstance or the event that took place there. So a lot of at the time, Stargate was still, they were just coming off of a really big run, and they had just finished that program because, I think that was a political move. Um, they might have been scared about, you know, not being able to control the psychic element of remote viewing. And ooh, let's not let that permeate our armed forces or, politics or the world order as it is, and we need to be able to control that. But they were still interested in knowing how that worked. So I have had many private interviews with certain CIA operatives about how this actually works in my head because they wanted to understand the mechanism of remote viewing and how that actually plays into reality. And am I actually seeing something that exists? So I found myself explaining something they had no concept of, but they were okay with it because the way I explained it was very much in their terminology. So I tried to depict what I was seeing in something that they could use. So they would ask me. I remember when this is before Psychic Detectives, before I did that pilot. I was just coming off of MTV Sphere. And one of the producers, his name was Roberto, he went with me and he said, "Look, I have an idea for a new show." He said, "I know that you do private readings for murder cases and missing persons and other other psychic meets crime things, and we could make a show out of that." So it was so funny. We were making all the rounds. We went to MTV, we went to ABC, we went to various networks with our pitch, but it just wasn't the right fit yet. And then Court TV decided to do it, and then it became a thing. So Roberto was a little bit upset that you know we shot a pilot even with a case in the desert here. And we went to the desert in San Bernardino, and we were actually in a I remember when he was setting up, and it was a case I never heard of, and he had two law enforcement, and they were actually also FBI because this dealt with something a little higher than them. So they were seated at the table. I got like 3 hours sleep before we did this thing. I had no idea what I was in for. I didn't even know the case. I knew nothing about the people involved, what the murder was, nothing. So they just wanted to see how that would play out because this was still a really brand new concept of psychic remote viewing into a crime scene that happened before. And they were experimenting with how this would work. And I thought, okay, I'll play along. So we went down there, we drove down there, and it was very hot in the desert, especially in where they were taking me, where the body was discovered and whatnot. So when we first started filming in the outside location areas where the body was discovered, um, I remember we went for 5 minutes, and Roberto had the camera he had it hoisted on his shoulder, and he said, "Hold on a second." And a brand new camera, brand new batteries, brand new film. The batteries were completely drained. So we did it again. We started again. He goes, look, batteries are cheap. Let's do this again. He did it again. Again, the batteries were drained. So we figured out that that was kind of like my kryptonite. Like when I was nearby cameras, they had to carry a lot of batteries because they realized that whatever the paranormal activity was around me, that they saw me and instantly latched onto my energy field. And we had to replace batteries quite a bit. So, okay, so we shot this thing. And when we had the interview in the morning, and it was before I even shot the first frame, it was 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm not even, I had coffee, but not really. So I'm sitting at the table with these two FBI guys. Never met them in my life. Roberto knows one of them. He's a friend with one of them. And they're asking me. They said, "Okay, what do you see about this guy?" And they laid a couple of pictures in front of me. And they said, "Just tell us what you sense about this case." Because we're lost. We just honestly want to know what you see. And I remember very distinctly saying, this has something to do with outside. This is definitely outside the country. I said, we're crossing borders into Mexico. And I said, there is an extortion situation here. And, I just went into my details. So I was done. They literally never reacted to one thing I said. So I thought I was just really off. And I thought, oh God, this is over before it begins. So the FBI guys take Roberto, my producer, outside the room. And they were out there for about 25 minutes. And I'm like, okay, how bad did I really do? Because I had no idea. So they came back and they said this was so enlightening and whatever, but they never told me what happened because they couldn't, and it was classified information, and they said they couldn't really divulge what happened, but they said this was so enlightening, and that's all they said to me. So I get in the car with Roberto, my producer from MTV, and he said, first of all, I said, so what happened? And he said, first of all, they almost arrested you. And I said, for what? I said, I just woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning. What did I do? And he said, because you were so dead on with your detail that they thought you were involved somehow. And they're actually taking everything you said and they're actually going to work on it. And I said, so why didn't they say anything? And he said, because, everything is clandestine and, the whole thing about psychics, it's just not well accepted in law enforcement or military or the government. And, this is something, this is a stigma you're going to have to live with if you pursue this line of work. And I said, I understand. I didn't care. So, later on, I heard that some of the details that I had gleaned from that read actually led to the guy's arrest. But of course, we don't hear about it because it's FBI, it's outside, US jurisdiction, and a psychic gave them that information. So, they were still hiding it at that point. And this was early 2000s. Okay, I just finished MTV Sphere. It was like 2002, 2003 is when we did this. So, psychic detectives, the whole idea about psychics and crime and remote viewing and all that just didn't exist at this point. So, then I get a call from HBO producers that had worked with psychic John Edward, and they asked me to do a documentary about psychic and crime and take one of my cases that they had read about in Pennsylvania, and they said, let's film you doing it live. And I said, okay. So then, we filmed the whole thing, and then they actually called John Edward and said, they had filmed something called Life After Life with him. So, he was already well known to them. And Stephen, the producer on that, he called him and he said, are we out of our minds with this girl? Like, is she on her game? Like, we're taking a chance on her because this is a pilot for a series. And he looked at it psychically and he said, she does what I do. She not only does medium work, but she does predictive work. She's good. And I remembered thanking him later because I actually worked with John Edward on something else for Dr. Phil. And I said, I don't think you remember, but you're pretty much the reason you gave the green light to my abilities. And I want to thank you. And he said, he didn't remember it. He said, oh my God, did I forget to call you? Like, what happened? And I said, no, no, no. I said, you actually said some really nice, glowing testimonial things about my ability. And I need to thank you for that. So that was that. And then right after that, Psychic Detectives, the pilot aired. It was the pilot episode. And it was kind of like a 2-hour thing. It was me and another psychic up in like San Jose or San Francisco, somewhere around there. So I had my case and she had hers, and it was just like a different style. She had a different style from me. And um, and I remembered this was still brand new with psychic remote viewing on these types of shows and psychic phenomena with law enforcement. It still was fresh. It still was green. They weren't sure that that was going to actually play. But they thought, you know what? It's worth a try because a lot of this stuff is making sense when we have the right psychic, we have the right medium, we have, not just some random psychic off the street who has a neon sign outside their door. It's someone that actually knows the process of law enforcement, knows the process of looking at cadavers, knows the process of going on the crime scene and not disrupting law enforcement and what they have to do. Um, and they knew that I would step back and I would let them do their work and I wouldn't interrupt them. So my demeanor helped a lot with that because a lot of psychics go in and their terminology and whatever, it just puts people off, when they're dealing with hardcore murder cases or serial killers or something, and then they started working with the military. And I remembered right when I right when I finished haunting evidence is when I was approached by the people that worked with Stargate. And they wanted to actually start that program up again, but they wanted to do it like in the public eye, like it was more public now. And they said, would you be interested in being one of our remote viewers for this? And I said, sure, I'll do it. And one of the guys wrote a book about it. I'm not going to say who it is because, I haven't talked to him in a couple of years, but he wrote a book about this and it did very well. And he was actually one of the agents that was assigned to that program. And he talked to me a lot about it, and he said, "Look, we're interested in reintroducing this program into, you know, into active, we want to take it out of the dust again, and we want to dust it off and do this program again. But this time we do it with science. We do it with um, some other uh, key elements in place that make this a little bit more, you know, 2000, whatever it was. It was at the time I finished Haunting Evidence, it was like 2009. So they wanted to bring it more into like a futuristic type of thing. They also wanted to introduce AI at that point, because this was the beginnings of AI also. And they wanted to take what a psychic remote viewer could see and actually implement it into an AI program. So I found that very fascinating. I'm like, okay, because then I could see 3D what I was seeing in my head, and I could verify, yes, that's what I saw, or no, that's not what I saw. Let's tweak this part a little bit and make it more what I saw. Um, and I thought that that was like a really uh, innovative use of psychic ability. So I thought, okay, I'm on for that. And then something happened, and something happened with the program. Like it ended up getting squashed by the White House, actually, and the administration at the time. And they were scared that that would unveil certain things that they had, certain files that they had hidden away, and they weren't ready to make public. That's what I was told. So they said, "Look, can we come back to you later?" And then, it never manifested. But I'm telling you, it's like it was very interesting, their idea, because I can say it now. It didn't happen. Um, that they were going to implement AI into the whole psychic crime thing. And they were actually going to show what I had seen, and they were going to hook me up to electrodes and actually have my brain wired so that you could see the mitochondria firing off while I was having these visions about what was happening, and I would talk. And they liked the idea that I never read people in person. That was one of the reasons I was chosen, because they said, "We find you very interesting because you don't have to have that person right there." And I said, "It's actually distracting to me to read people in person." And if you notice my work on TV, I would always look to the side of everybody, or maybe you didn't notice, but I was. And I found myself, um, I would just read the way I read, and they would understand, "Look, I'm not being rude by not looking at you, but I can't. I can't. I have to get everything, all my details, and then I can look at you and we're fine." Um, so the fact that they were going to re reignite the Stargate program, I thought was interesting. The Stargate project. Now, there's another Stargate program that I guess utilizes AI now. So they actually took that name, and they're implementing that into like an AI program now with the White House. So the Stargate project, though, that utilizes remote viewers to see whatever they need to see, there are some factions that are still doing this, but it's very underground, and they will never let that be known who it is. I get contacted from time to time for those types of things, but I just, they know I'm not going to say their name, and I'm not going to reveal who they are. So, um, so it's still going on. They just don't have an official program or an official project name. It's it's been shut down, you know, but it's still going on. I'm telling you, it's still going on. I know it is because I've talked to some people who were part of the original program, and I said, are they still having you do this? And they said, yeah, pretty much on a daily basis. So a lot of times when we were asked to do that type of work, we would I would be sitting just by myself, and they would give me the target, and I would just tell them what I see around it. And the thing is that they would use multiple psychics to do the remote viewing. So they would compile the data from all the psychics, and then they would place it in a file. And all of us saw different parts of it. My talent lied in like um, like particular points of danger, like timelines. Like they had this much time to get this completed, or this would happen. Or I saw like the enemy, like they have to steer clear of this faction in order to complete their mission, or something like that. So mine was more about strategic planning. And other people, it was more about, the victims, or who might get hurt, or, what the best angle to approach was, or, you know, um, but mine was more about administrative, like strategic planning, like what what elements did they need to keep in mind and actually act fast on. So I was always the one they asked first, because I said, okay, this, and this. So I worked faster than the other ones, apparently. And I would just tell them what I had to see, whether it was right or wrong. This is what I see. This is what you have to look out for. These are the people that are danger zone people. And they are enemies, or they are out to harm, whatever it is. So they would take that information and they would just keep that in the file. But they said that that was very helpful because, sometimes they didn't know logistics, and they didn't know exactly where to go in. I would help them with timing, like where to go at what time, like whether it was day or night, whether that was the strike, day or night. So I've done this before. I did in my regular psychic work or these podcasts before, but I'll talk about it now. Um, and it was something I was very interested in doing, because I thought that that was a really unique way to use my ability. Um, so I did that for a number of years with them. And I just helped them out whenever they called, in between my other readings. And they said, okay, we're going to call you again. And I said, okay. And they would put it on a secure line. They would record it. And that was the end of it. I never actually heard about what happened with all the stuff I saw, but I knew that was part of the deal. Like, I wasn't going to get any accolades for that, but I liked doing it because I got to practice. I got to practice what I do. So, um, and I got to hone my skills. So anyway, we can talk about anything here. We can talk about, you know, are there such things as aliens? Is there alien life form? Is there Are there other worlds out there that are monitoring what we're doing? You know, are there different dimensions of time and space that we're dealing with, and we're just in one of them? Anything that's related to this topic, I will take a look at and we'll see what I see. So if you guys want to ask questions, I need you to submit a request to speak, and then I will put you on. And no promises about, like exactly everything I see, but I'm pretty good at this, like where you fire questions at me about things I have no idea about, and then I'm able to see certain aspects. So if you want to talk, you want to ask your question about, whatever it is, just send a request and I'll put you on. Um, because this is request only on these things. That way we keep the riffraff out of these conversations. Um, but that's kind of how it began with psychics and crime and remote viewing and all that. And remote viewing was a real thing. That's what I was doing for them. And they liked it because they considered me untainted by, regular investigations, because I didn't have to actually be flown to that location to see what I saw. I could do it in my mind and I could travel there in my mind, and it made no difference how far away it was, because time and space for some reason doesn't register in my brain. I don't know why it doesn't. It just doesn't. I don't consider that an obstacle. And I think a lot of psychics do consider that an obstacle. They have this they have this need to actually be on site and see it. And that's actually disruptive to me, because I I get distracted by being there. I'd rather step back and not be up so close to it. So then I can see the full picture of what played out. And that's how I did my work best. So they thought that that was unusual. So that's why I was chosen for that type of work. And why haven't I talked about it before? Number one, because it was clandestine, and they, you know, they made me sign non-disclosures and stuff. But it was more that I loved the opportunity of practicing with this, because I thought it was really necessary. Because there's going to come a time where the atmosphere or the environment will make it so that you can't go outside, and someone who does remote viewing will become very valuable, because then we can check to see if it's okay to go out there, you know? So I thought, okay, this is a good thing to do. And I came away with a lot of knowledge after I did that, about how I work, what my best ways of working were. Um, and I always had to have some sort of noise or music playing when I did it. And they said, "No, we can't have you." I said, "Yes." I said, "You turn it on, because I need something else looping in the background while I work, because I can't be in complete silence." I don't know why I can't see like that. It's just, it makes it hard. So I need just white noise behind me, and sometimes just having music in the background is white noise. And that, all of a sudden, I would start seeing things. And that's how it works for me. It doesn't mean that the ways that other psychic remote viewers working was any different. Have I ever encountered alien life forms? No, but a lot of my clients have. And I've talked about that before, where, you know, they went and had surgery to remove something. Like, I remember this one woman in Texas I read, and she was not on drugs, she was not drinking, she was not doing anything, and she actually had um, a device to remove from her wrist. And they did a scan. They saw this chip that was in her wrist, and it was removed. And I asked her if she kept the chip, and she said no. But she recounted that when she was a child, um, there'd be these bright lights, and she they were nice to her, but they were these beings that would talk to her. And I just, sort of listened to her story, and then she said that it became a regular thing while she was growing up. And I was again so fascinated. I just wanted to listen to her story. I thought, well, I'll just take this with a grain of salt, half of what she's saying. But she was she was so convinced they were okay and they were nice and they weren't going to harm her. But then she started having health problems, and when they did a scan for that, they found this chip that was located in her wrist. And they said, "When did you have this done?" And she said, "I don't know. That little scar has always been there." And there was an implant in there. When they studied the implant and they took it to the lab, now this is the part where I was like totally involved. She said, they they said, "We don't have this technology yet." And I said, "What?" And I even talked to her doctor because I was like, "Okay, is she out of her mind? Like, what's going on?" And they said no. They said certain components within the chip were not available yet, and they said we don't know what to do with this. So they actually sent it to the Pentagon and let them have it. She wasn't the only one. For some reason, these clients would find me, by word of mouth or whatever, but that were 100% certain they were taken aboard a craft and probed or whatever. And this is men and women, so it didn't matter about the hormonal panels. This was men and women I had talked to and read for. And I thought, and the X Files, yeah, that was a big show at the time, but I don't think all of them were under the spell of some television show. I mean, I think this was something where they were all led to talk to me because I wouldn't make fun of them. And just some of the things I heard about what they were doing, and nobody was ever really hurt. They were just examined or studied for like it was a master class in humanoids or something. I don't know, but none of them were physically hurt. Mentally, psychologically, they needed help because they just had no explanation for what happened. There was a period of time that was blocked out of their memory that they never recovered. They never recovered that time, and that's one of the reasons they talked to me in a reading in the first place, because they never recovered that slot of time, and they wanted me to see what I could see about it. So, are aliens real? Is alien life form real? In the context of these are other beings that aren't human. I After reading so many people, that what I came to the conclusion of is that yes, but I think it's more of a hybrid, if you will. Like it's a hybrid of human and alien DNA. It's a hybrid where they can exist in this atmosphere and walk amongst us and nobody knows. Like a heightened form of humanoid. So that's what I came to after talking to all of them, that somehow, some way, there was like a joining of these two races of beings, and in order to take us out of like a complacent slumber where we were just, doing what we were told and just living each day and just dying each day and just going through life instead of looking into, the higher levels of ascension and learning and seeing what we could discern there. And I think we became very, as a collective consciousness, it wasn't being raised. It was just we were staying at the same level for a very long time. So, this introduction of this higher level of being, this more advanced form of being, where disease wouldn't so easily take the body and destroy it. Where like the human, um, your resistance to disease and it was stronger. When they would merge these two, whether it be through implanting something or whether it was a relationship that happened, whatever it was, two different two different levels of existence, and this was how they were able to merge them. And this happened over the last probably couple centuries, but it was slow and it was undetected, and they walked amongst everybody else, and they were able to fit in, but they were far more advanced than we were. So, whether their blood mingled with our blood and their DNA mingled with our strands, and somehow, some way, this hybrid, this better, stronger, more resilient form of humanoid, so that we could actually, um, do the lessons we came here to do and contribute to, whatever that level of ascension was, because we're here for a purpose, not to just sit here and relax. I mean, we're here to do things. We're here to learn about other worlds, other realms, knowledge, and create a whole experience. That's why you are incarnated into a physical form, and there was too much complacency, too much just doing it just to sit around. And I think that's why this started. That is my take from the private sessions that I was doing with a lot of these people. I personally have not been contacted, but I think it's because I'm so strong willed. I mean, it's like they would have a really hard time getting me to do anything, because I would fight it. I would fight it. I'm too strong willed, and I'm just not a great candidate for them. But I was sent to all these people where I could learn. I could learn how they were contacted, by these other beings. And too many of them had the same story, and they had never met each other. These were from different parts of the world where I was hearing the same story. And I thought, well, that can't be a coincidence. So we're not the only race out there, guys, and we're not the only world, and we're not the only ensouled species. And to think we are is kind of a form of hubris, if you will. And I just think that we need to look at the fact that we're not the only ones, and that there are others out there that are willing to teach us and learn from us, and we learn from them. And we need to stop being afraid of things that are different, you know, worlds that are different, thoughts that are different, uh, people that look different, you know, um, because, as we utilize our resources here on this planet and we waste them, we're going to have to adapt to a new way of living and a new way of existing if we keep destroying our planet the way we are. So, that's just what I came up with. Um, and as far as like other technology and AI, I personally am interested in AI because I think it will facilitate a lot of connections that we miss. It will examine and um, it will illuminate connections that we didn't look at before. Because humans are basically used to doing things the same way in repetition, and it's like this, you know, same thing day in, day out, and you become very comforted by having the same routine. But AI will look at it very quickly and present you with like a different perspective that you weren't looking at before. And I think to have that as an overlay pattern that will give us a new perspective on how to look at something we've looked at every single day. I invite that. I actually like that idea. A lot of people are afraid of that, but I actually like it. I think if you can just expand your mind to accept that, it's an acceptance of something different than what you know. And most people don't want to accept something they don't know. That's the bottom line. If we simplify it, and we reduce it to they just don't want to accept something they don't know. And it's different and they're scared of it because it's different. Well, I don't think it'll hurt us as long as we still have a sense of self while we're using it. You can't lose yourself in it. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to do nothing now and be a robot and let the AI just take over. You're not going to do that. You're going to let it assist and amplify and improve your daily life. Yes, that technology can probably get out of hand in the wrong hands or in the wrong, control. But, that's like anything. Anything can do that. Anything, any new technology that you point to can do that. So to be afraid of it is stupid. To learn from it and learn how to harness it without allowing it to permeate your every cell of your being is the key. So let me stop talking and get somebody else in here. Michelle. Hey, Michelle. You there? Michelle. Hey, you.
How
So
are you?
so I'm rambling on about things, but I again want to thank you guys for being so kind to me this week. That was, because I was crying at the beginning of the week and pretty hard,
Hey,
and I couldn't stop. So
uh,
you guys, if I didn't have you like always asking me, you know, you guys were all sending me messages all the time, making sure I'm good. What do you need? Do you need to talk? Whatever. I mean, I read every single one and I was so happy. Thank you.
I just wanted to give you a big hug.
Yeah, I know.
uh,
I know.
Doug will be missed.
Yeah.
Um, I was thinking Area 51. Every time I hear about alien technology and do aliens exist, it always brings me back to Area 51. Is there any truth to that? Because it's been so many years, and I'm sure that if there was an alien ship that crashed and the government was all over it trying to learn the technology or see what it's about, and maybe the technology we have now is because of that Area 51.
Well, I think Area 51 is just one of many sites that have those ley lines and that energy grid laying over it. I think Area 51 is there because because of the ley lines and because of the energy field.
Mhm.
It actually made it like a like a zone that it was almost like if you take two magnets, you know,
Mhm.
and it was an energy field that was natural. And there are ley lines all over the earth like that. That grid has changed since our poles have changed. The North Pole and the South Pole are different now.
Mhm.
And the the grid is different now. So it's slightly different. In some areas, it actually made like a lightning sort of diagram, where it goes in and then over a little bit and down again,
Mhm.
like a lightning bolt, where before it had been a straight line or a square. And some of what's gone on with our energy field on this planet has been skewed, and the mapping is different now.
Mhm.
So the best thing we have is human. One of the things we always forget is one of the simple things. We're very adaptable if we let ourselves be. We are very fluid if we let ourselves be. We can adapt to pretty much any situation on any given day if we just let ourselves do it. And don't become rigid with making slight changes when that happens. Just
Mhm.
go with it as it's happening. Just align with the new energy grid as it is forming. Because the boundaries of the energy field will be different, and they will change depending upon other external factors that are happening. So I honestly feel if we can stop holding on so tight and stop being so afraid of just letting something different present itself to us, you know area 51 is one of those magnetic fields. They have them in Sedona, they have them in Machu Picchu, they have them, they're all over the globe. The White House is built over one.
But there's been so much
The Vatican,
cover up
the Vatican
according to that.
in the Vatican in Rome is built over one. So you think they built those locations by no,
It's like
they
a beacon for aliens. I don't know.
well, it's a beacon for the pyramids in Egypt.
They're
They
still
just
trying
they didn't
to figure those out.
they didn't just randomly choose, like, oh well, let's stick them here. Those were
There's a
chosen.
purpose. Mhm.
Look, they have um I do believe a higher intelligence helped them construct these these like, there's no way we had that technology then.
Yeah, of course. They definitely had help.
And the thing is people are so afraid of something that's different. It's like, oh my God, it infiltrated our world, and we have to consider it an enemy because it's something different from what we've known. But those pyramids created a very geophysical type of, you know, um, it's almost like it harnesses energy is what it does.
Mhm. That's what I've heard. Mhm.
So, I mean, to think that, oh well, we did that by ourselves. No, we
No
did not.
way. No way.
No, we
Mm-mm.
did not.
No.
And this is where people are afraid, like, oh well, if it wasn't human, then we need to be afraid of it. Why? They can teach us things. They weren't here to harm us. They were here to help, to assist,
There's so many
to help.
different shows according to that technology, as far as like ancient aliens and unclassified documents. I mean, there's so much out there that is flooded, classified. Yeah, there's so much
Well,
information out
and
there.
the thing is that, all right, let's talk about classified for a second. Let's talk about,
Hmm.
you know, why the need to classify? Okay. There is a need in one light where if you don't have the capacity to actually absorb or integrate or understand or comprehend the event,
Hmm.
then that can create panic,
Right. They don't want
world
to panic. Hmm.
worldwide panic, and
Exactly.
there are certain souls that actually need to be led by other souls. There's leaders and then there are followers. I
Followers.
mean, that's the natural order of things until forever. But I think that, you know, they just didn't want that type of chaos on their hands where people were panicking in the streets.
Hmm.
So that's one reason why. And to control the masses, to make sure that they felt safe,
Hmm.
because that's the first thing that happens is that you lose your feeling of security, and uh, you revert back to being an infant and you feel unsafe.
Right.
So that's the main reason. But the other reason that started populating was world leaders and those that would do harm and see an access point where they could manipulate fate and they could
Hmm.
manipulate and for their own greed or for their own sense of power. That's where it became different. It wasn't just about protection then. It was like, let's take advantage of the fact that these people are scared, and let's manipulate them. And then let's go one step extra and actually give them a narrative to live by and instill fear in them if they don't do it. So it became controlling the masses.
Right.
And and in the beginning, religion was just a very nice thing, but then it became a manipulative device to control the masses and for leaders of different governments and worlds and hierarchies to absorb more power because power was very um, it was addictive, and
Exactly.
they grew an addiction to it and they couldn't stop themselves you know
Right.
So what's your question about Area 51 though, other than just,
Well,
they're
I was
doing up
thinking.
shows? you know
I was thinking that that what we heard about an alien ship may have crashed there, and they got hold of an alien, and they, I guess, checked out the ship and maybe got some technology from it, and maybe they've been trying to improve on that. And they don't tell us only what they want us to know, and there's
Yeah,
just so much
but
cover up.
let's look at the other side of it though. Like if you knew the technology and the materials that were not of this earth, that they were, that ship or that device was made of, how would be scared of it?
Oh, of course.
So I look at both sides of it from above
Hmm.
and I'm like thinking, you put that in the wrong hands and then that's a problem.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, that they don't say anything because they don't want the other countries to get a hold of it, and they keep it
Well,
on the down low.
that's still part of the greed thing. It's more they don't release it to the public because then it becomes again uh, people running in the streets in hysteria. It becomes a problem. So, but it also became, there's a nice balance between manipulation and protection.
Hmm.
And how about meet somewhere in the middle where it's knowledge that, you know, that is imparted to the right factions or the right groups of people,
Right.
where we can actually use what we found. But what they did was, look, if you were the alien, let's say that happened, which I think something did happen, but
I do
let's
too.
say
Hmm.
let's say you're the alien and you got captured and they started experimenting on you without your consent, and then it was just very invasive.
Hmm.
It wasn't what they were doing. They were learning to try to help us with disease or help us with this, like higher learning, or how to create, because in the past 200 years, we've had a lot of technological advances that
Yep.
that happened because I think of this integration with a higher society of beings.
I believe that as well. Definitely.
That wasn't, we didn't just go from farmers to like flying to Mars.
Well, that's why I'm saying I'm thinking that the government may have learned a lot from Area 51 situation with the supposed, alien ship and
No
everything.
doubt,
So
no doubt, no doubt
definitely.
they learned
But
a
they've
lot of things, but
also taken a lot of people and against their will and probed them and did all that as well.
well, it hasn't
Yeah.
it hasn't made them better souls, let's put it that way. It
Hmm.
hasn't made them treat humanity any better. It was
Hmm.
just more for their coffers that they could fill up with riches and treasures. I mean, I and and acquire wealth. But
Right.
it's it's something where I don't think that other beings from another planet coming in and observing us in order to help us is a problem. But we exacerbated the situation, because
Hmm.
we abused the privilege of other knowledge being shared with us, instead of being appreciative and finding a way to work together. What happened was we attacked them and we studied them like animals,
Exactly.
and they were higher beings with more advanced minds than we ever thought of having.
Right. And I'm sure
And do
better
you see how,
intentions. Hmm.
from their perspective, where that might be a problem? They were just trying to learn and to help us get out of, they were seeing the disease, and they were seeing, how we were destroying the planet, and how easily they could help us just learn a few things, and then we could improve upon that.
Right.
That's how I'm seeing it
Hmm.
from my angle.
Hmm.
I may be wrong, but I think it's right. Just from the other readings I've done with people, and just, the studying I've done, is that they didn't come in aggressive, but we certainly did.
Because we fear the unknown. That's what happens. That's how we react.
You know what? I don't think they threatened anything. I think we were just afraid of somebody else being better than us.
Hmm.
And and the United States is mainly, I talked about this before too, where we're mainly a young soul nation.
Hmm.
And young souls have, as one of the attributes or one of the elements of being a young soul, is power. Power is very attractive, and it becomes one of the karmic elements to every lifetime you choose as a young soul. The mature souls and the old souls were in Iran, and you know, like Egypt, and over in the Middle East and Turkey. I mean, those were older souls. They were the first. but most of the United States is a young soul country.
Hmm.
The leader of this country right now is certainly a young soul because power is so important to him.
Oh boy, is
You
it.
know, well, it's, you know,
I had another
well,
question that might be better. Can remote viewing, can that be taught, or do you have to be a psychic to remote view?
no, it can be taught, but it's, I think, just like with any skill in this lifetime, some people are better at it than others. Some people are more equipped with natural
Hmm.
ability to, remote viewing means you aren't afraid of leaving your body to go see what something else is. And a lot of people have that fear of letting go of that kind of control.
Yeah, that sounds a little scary. I don't think I would be a good candidate.
No, I mean, I was suited for it, I think, because I was always so curious, like I was always like I just couldn't wait to go see what that was. And like, let me go in there. Like I was always the first one to say, let me go in there and see what I can see. Um, but because I have a sense of adventure, and I
Mm.
didn't want to um, just sit here and not do that. I just thought that that was so amazing. And I said,
It's
let
nice
me
to
learn.
watch, but I don't think I could do it.
Look, at some point I may teach classes on various things, and that might be one of them. I mean, I
I mean,
have
it's interesting.
I have another phase of my life coming up that I sense that I'll be doing a lot of teaching, you know?
Hmm.
And I have no problem teaching that type of thing, those types of courses. And I would do that,
Wow.
but and I would do it at different levels with different students because not everyone is going to race to the head of the class,
It
Um,
would be baby steps, definitely.
yeah, I mean, you're gonna divide the class into, your true beginners, and
Right.
you're gonna have your intermediate levels, you're gonna have
Hmm.
um, your advanced levels, and then you're gonna have the ones that are really like pretty much ready to go.
Wow. Well,
You know,
that would be interesting. That would be really fun.
well, I mean, that's something that I had foreseen for myself later. Like once I was getting into the podcast arena here and I was doing all this,
Hmm.
I came up with that idea that I will do that. I will teach classes, and I'll have them be different levels of classes,
Hmm.
mainly because people, you know, will not be at the same level, and then it becomes a problem for like beginners. They won't understand or comprehend.
Sure. No, it's just like regular school.
Yeah.
You have kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and so forth.
Yeah, and the thing is that it can only improve your quality of
Mhm.
life, and then you go out and discuss and, you know, I integrate with others who are doing the same thing, and then it becomes a whole community of this fascination for knowledge, this
Oh,
thirst
sounds
for
like fun.
knowledge to go
Hmm.
see what that is. Oh, yeah, I have no problem doing that because I think I could teach people how to use regular tools because I talk like a regular person. I try not to talk above whatever level you're going. I could, talk
Hmm.
at that level, but and I know other psychics that do that. They talk at these levels that are just so above anything that you can understand that
Right.
I'm like, well, that's not helping anybody. I'm not saying you need to dumb it down, but you need to put it in a
Layman's
context
terms.
that's
Yeah.
that's
Hmm.
unique for you and that you understand by example. Like that it's like this, and you give metaphors and you give examples of what it's like in your life, and that's helpful because then it helps you learn how to do it.
Yeah, you make it very easy to follow what you're saying, which we appreciate, I'm sure.
I mean, I don't see the, I don't know what purpose that would serve to talk above you, you know,
Right.
and be
Well, thank you,
superior.
Carla. It's interesting. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
No, I mean, we'll do that. Look for that later because
Definitely.
I'll introduce those later. I had actually come up with that idea years ago that I was going to do that. So I'm glad that came up in conversation here because I will do that. I
That's
will.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
So
thank you.
you're welcome. All right. So let's see if anybody else has a question about, I don't know. It doesn't matter as long as it pertains to something that could be considered X-file-ish. And if you want to talk, just send me a request to speak. But we will, you know, we've talked about a lot of stuff here. I mean, if there's, generally speaking, I mean, it's like most people are saying, well, you know, I'm talking about something that you don't know anything about because you have nothing to compare it to. But it's something that people are finding comforting to know that, look, I mean, these other beings came to us with this advanced knowledge, with this advanced technology, and they came to help us. And what did we do? We mistreated them. That's just simple 101 there, guys. I mean, if you mistreat someone, they're going to retaliate. So, hey, Annie, I got you on. All right. So, Annie, what is your question? And thank you for your kind words earlier this week. Are you there? You need to turn your mic on. There you are.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, you're good. Hey,
Hi.
Annie.
How you doing? How are you doing?
I'm better. It was a hard, rough week for me, but I'm better now. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
You sound good. Um.
yeah, I'm a little better now. I'm a little more balanced. So
That's good.
so what is happening with your question? What I know you
Um.
have thoughts on this because you've said so before.
Yeah, I do. I've been trying to kind of gather my thoughts and try to figure out how to, I guess, parse it down because I think remote viewing is a really fascinating concept, and I think that um my question is, so I know that the CIA has released some things about, what work that they've done and what they've studied and that kind of thing with remote viewing and whatnot. But um, I know that obviously they haven't like released all of it, and I think that they've probably not really released even a fraction of it. And I think my question is, where, I guess, and I'm not even sure if you can answer this, but where is the line drawn between what they release and what we're kind of quote unquote allowed to know about, and then and then when it becomes like, uh, okay, we can't really talk about this or be, you know what I mean? Like, I guess where is
Let
that
me
line in the sand
let
drawn?
me make a comparison to, like, let's say it's let's say it's the cure for cancer or something,
Hmm.
and you release the cure for cancer into the mainstream public, and only certain individuals will be able to take that knowledge and make it where they can utilize it and shape it into some sort of a solution and some sort of a workable format that will advance us, you know.
Hmm.
But if you just give it to like a lay person who doesn't know what they're doing and they're just pouring bleach down their throat or whatever, you know, I mean, I don't mean to, but I was just thinking of COVID. um, and you find yourself, just handing this out to like a lay person or just a regular Joe walking down the street. You
Mhm.
find yourself uh, putting a lot of knowledge into the wrong hands, because
Mhm.
a layperson that is not educated in this area would skip some steps that would be necessary in order to implement that knowledge and actually put it in its best format so that it can be useful
Mhm.
in the cure for cancer. You've got alien technology, alien life forms, other civilizations that are beyond humanoid. You've got materials that are not of this planet that belong in space. You've got other things happening.
Mhm.
A layperson who doesn't understand that material,
Mhm.
let's say it's the material from a ship.
Right.
They don't understand the material or its properties.
Mhm.
In the wrong hands, it could be detrimental. You could accidentally set off a nuclear explosion, let's say, or something. You know, you could accidentally harm someone with it if you don't know what you're doing. There's
Mhm.
there's a certain level of educating yourself before you say, "Oh, well, I'm just feeling like they're keeping things from me." Well, that's sort of infantile in its, assessment. You don't want something just because you can't have it.
Right.
Do you understand?
Yeah. I
There's like a responsibility to having that knowledge
I think
and
that
knowing what to do with it.
my confusion kind of comes from where it seems like at this point, aliens and kind of things like this are sort of it almost feels like a thing where it's like everybody knows but nobody talks about it kind of thing, where it's like, you know um is the government covering up, like, for example, if something happened at Roswell and they, to this day maintain like nothing happened, but it's like, or that, uh remote viewing and psychics and things like that are like a conspiracy theory or whatnot. And I've heard the theory that it's like, well, they don't want to cause like mass hysteria and things like that, by saying aliens exist or whatnot. But I feel like at this point, we as kind of a culture have, um progressed and kind of have, um moved beyond a point um where it seems like a lot of people kind of just already know already. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how much sense that makes, but you know what I
Well,
mean?
I think they know certain aspects of it. Let me just say this. I think it should be somewhere in between. I think you should be able to have a working knowledge of the structure of whatever it is that you're seeking knowledge about. Okay, and whether it's a medical advancement or it's about alien life forms or it's about some sort of alien properties, that you have some sort of education or some sort of um, you you have an aptitude that will be recognized for that particular field. And
Mhm.
then you go through some steps or maybe take a test where they see that you'll comprehend some of this. And then you are allowed into a library where you're able to access those files and absorb that knowledge. But to just release it to just everyone in the world, there are
Mhm.
some people that would take that knowledge just to sell it, you know, because
Yeah, yeah.
it becomes mercenary. It becomes like, I can sell that knowledge and I can get $1 million for having this technology in my hand, and I'll go sell it to China and they'll give me $1 million and I can live for the rest of my life and never have to work again. There are some people that would do that.
Yeah, and I think that, and I don't, personally, I don't feel like, entitled to government secrets and things like that, but I do get frustrated when I see like, oh, just that cover-ups are happening and things like that, and it just makes me ask the question, kind of, um because it makes sense what you're saying about, like, we can't release things all willy-nilly because who knows, where it'll end up. But it's like, who is the arbiter of that? Because if you consider people that we have in power now who have access theoretically to all these secrets, who are, to be honest, you some of the dumbest
Well,
people that, like,
they're
I
un,
mean, you
they're
know what I
uns
mean? So it's like,
yeah.
I get what
No, I
you're
know.
saying, but at the same time, I'm like,
Well, they're
but you know,
unscrupulous for sure, but it goes to say that, that's what I'm saying, that at some point
mhm,
there should be a purveyor of knowledge, where a library where you're only allowed access if what are you going to use it for? You
mhm,
know, um, and I need to learn about this side of this technology because I'm trying to invent something else that particular technology would be uh, just essential.
mhm.
And think I think people should be vetted before they are handed that information. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that for me, my point of view just kind of comes from, like, because again, it makes total sense what you're saying, and I agree. But I think about, like I've heard, I don't know how true this is, but I've heard that, like, people who have tried remote viewing and things like that and have, like, gotten good with it, have said that, like, um uh you know that it's almost like the government, like, knows that, like, you're doing it, and they, like, kind of, like, will, stop you somehow, like, psychically or whatnot. And again, I don't know how true that is. It that, like, I'm curious as to how it all works with, um I guess again, um what the measurement is to determine if someone has knowledge or not. And then it's, like, a person like me, like, I would like to know, just for curiosity's sake, not because I particularly want to do anything or have any plans to use it for X, Y, and Z, but just being curious about how the process works. Like, what are the limitations, like, what are humans capable of, really, and things like that. You know what I mean? And
Well, and that's why I think at some point I will teach,
mhm,
various levels of classes on how to do this. But I think, um, again, I think it boils down to intent level and what
mhm,
are you going to use it?
yeah,
And is it just because you have this innate curiosity about it and you need to see if you have an aptitude for it, which is fine. That's fine because,
mhm,
you might have an aptitude for it, but you have to be able when the one thing I know about remote viewing is that you can't hold on to the information. Like I would just be the viewfinder and I
mhm,
would say what I saw. And I didn't have any attachment of like holding on to that information or feeling possessive over that information, like I shouldn't give it to that person. Like,
mhm,
when you go in, you're seeing what you can see and you're mapping out, basically what's in your mind's eye, and that's it. And you're hoping that while you do that, that it's going to be used for the correct purpose. But there's
mhm,
always going to be an unscrupulous and negative contingent that will take that information and do the wrong thing with it.
mhm,
That's just the way life is.
mhm,
You're always going to have evildoers and you're always going to have good people. You can't erase one or the other because you have to have balance in order
right,
to choice. And it's a free will choice. And we are a
mhm,
free will dimension where we do have free will, and we need to understand that free will is a gift.
Mhm.
It's a gift that we're given free will. It's not some curse, it's a gift.
Yeah.
So, so, as far as like, oh, they should be doing this, remember that when you ask that question, be careful that you're not asking it because, well, I want it because they're holding it away from me. They're telling me I can't
Mhm.
have it. Just make sure it doesn't become an infantile struggle of I want it because I can't have it.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
that's not where I'm coming from at all.
yeah.
For me,
But
it's
some
I
people
know
do.
that there are
Some
some
people
people
do.
who are like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, where there's a lot of resentment where it's like, why won't they just tell us? And things like that. And that's not really where I'm coming from. But at the same time, I understand kind of the, kind of pushback against this idea of like, oh, well, everything has to be a secret and like a cover up, because I'm like, well, what if some people are just curious? Like, what is the, purpose of, keeping things secret? Like, who determines who can be trusted with the information, things like that. So it's like I see, where they're coming from, as far as
Well, I don't think I think as we get more transparency and where, it I think there will be a filtering
mhm,
that will occur in the future where there'll be different layers and filters to disseminate certain information to certain groups, but where it becomes like a mass database where medical could tap into that and hey, we could use that to make innovations in this study or
mhm,
this trial that we're doing, or like let's say it's agriculture and it's like let's look for a more natural way instead of GMOs or something. Let's use this technology to make the most of our environment the way it is right now today. And that there's a giant vast universal database that will be created with all these things instead of this need to possess and hold on
mhm,
to and covet information. Coveting information is a very young soul type of move too. So
mhm,
I I'm just, it's my hope that we sort of grow out of that
mhm,
and people understand that information isn't something you own. It's something that you you have an appreciation for,
mhm,
that you're even coming into contact with it. So again, it's not something to barter with.
mhm,
Information is not something, and it's become that. It's become a bartering tool and this currency. And I'm just hoping that one day people share information because hey, I can, I'm looking to purify water, so I need to be able to use this technology that can do it through a prism and a crystal and a light source.
mhm,
Something like that where you see all kinds of applications for the same knowledge. That's what I'm hoping. And eventually
mhm,
we'll get there when we stop coveting knowledge like it's ours to covet, you know?
mhm. Yeah.
And I I think everybody has certain abilities. Like some people aren't actually equipped to do remote viewing because it's very scary to step outside of your body long enough to go somewhere else to visit and see what's going on over there.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you have to be fearless. You have to be fearless to do that. You have to be like, "Hey, I'm going
Mhm.
in." And
Yeah,
and
and I
I
kind
would
of look at it like that, where it's like it's not necessarily something that I personally would even want to do, because I don't. That makes me. That kind of gives me the. It's like when people talk about like astral projecting or things like that, where it's like I don't want but it's at the same time I'm very curious about the process of like how it works and how people can do
well,
it and that kind of thing.
and that's why I think at some point I'll teach, instead of, I could have gone two different ways with this. I could just write a book and then write
Mhm.
another book, and then write another book, and then you guys buy it online or go to a bookstore. But
Mhm.
what good does that do? Most books just stay on shelves and nobody reads them. This way, you have to actually use what I'm saying. So
Mhm.
that's much better as far as impact, as far as my
Yeah.
legacy
Yeah.
here. So I think that's the way I'm going to go with it. But
Yeah.
to teach people how to just release control a little, allow yourself to travel somewhere else.
Mhm.
That's people think, oh, that's easy. No, it's not, because a lot
Yeah.
of people are afraid to let go of the control factor.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
I mean I definitely am. That's why I'm more like, I just like to kind of observe and learn about it, but I don't actually, want to do.
well, and that's why, like, if a class is taught or something like that online, like, if I do that,
Mhm.
and I teach a class online about how, what your senses will pick up, like, what you will see, what you will feel, what you will hear,
Mhm.
like, and so that you get used to it before you actually get in the field and do some experiments,
Mhm.
to see
Yeah.
how it is. And then we see what your aptitude is. Maybe you have a better aptitude for noticing minute little details that are out of place. Maybe that's your gift. Maybe that's the thing
Mhm.
you see. And maybe
Yeah.
the next person sees, they're able to get a sense of, like, um, noises, and, like,
Mhm.
more clairaudient about the situation, and they can hear what's going on.
Mhm.
Not
Yeah.
so much see, because the view is a little obscured, but they can hear what's going on. They can hear voices, conversations,
Mhm.
you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
So each person is going to have a different, you know, uh, a different talent to
Mhm.
apply to this sort of technology. So, um, and my thing was, I was just able to go in, and you know what made me successful at this, I got to say, I
Mhm.
wasn't afraid to be wrong.
Mhm.
That was the biggest thing that made me successful at it, because I wasn't afraid to be wrong.
That's such a
It's
rare
like,
thing, and that's something that I find in life,
yeah,
even just everyday things to extraordinary things where it's just so many people will like choose ego over learning um because they are afraid to be wrong because I don't know why
that's
but
why I advanced so quickly, and why I was a pioneer in certain areas of this, because
mhm
I if I was wrong, then so be it. But that's part of, like, any type of schooling or learning, or assimilating something, is that you will not be right every single time, but being wrong, you learn from being wrong. You learn,
mhm
okay, I don't do that again, so I do this instead. So that's the only way you're going to learn.
right it's
And
from
people are
mistakes.
afraid of being wrong. Like, if you were right 100% of the time, where's the lesson in that?
Right, exactly. But so many people, and I find this just online too, and around just everyday debates and things like that, where it's like you can't. It's almost like it's pointless to even engage because it's like, well, the person. So many people are not arguing to learn; they're arguing to be right, even if they're wrong. So
Well, I mean, the
and
need
just in
for
general.
attention. People need attention, and they need to be
Hmm.
heard, and they're not being heard in regular aspects of their life. So they go online and they get in these communities where they they demand to be heard, and they
Hmm.
don't care if they're a bully or how they're going to get that done, but they're going to get heard. And
Yeah.
this is where you will find those types of personalities. I don't care what field we're looking at.
Mhm.
So in the psychic field, and whether, there's real psychics out there or not, I mean, there's very few that have extraordinary ability, like every single time they're just dead on, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah,
There's
I don't
very
think I've
few that
ever heard of anyone who's, right
I mean,
100% of the time.
and that's the thing, I stopped trying to be right all the time, and
Mhm.
living in fear of being wrong, and like, "Oh, what if I say the wrong thing?" I didn't give a shit at one point. I just said, "All right, this is how
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this," and if they like my style of delivery and they like
Mhm.
how I'm presenting the material, well then, hey, we're all winning at this. So I just stopped thinking about it like that. I stopped thinking about I use what I have and do the best that I can with it, and then I let them take it. I don't tell them once they take it, okay, well, you can take it, but you have to do this exactly as I would do it. Nah, see, this is where I am more. I give you the
Mhm.
freedom to take the knowledge that I gave you
Mhm.
and use it accordingly. How
Yeah.
you would use it, not how I would use it, but how you would use it.
And that's so important
And
for
that's
teaching too. Um, because I work in academics, and so, obviously not psychically, but I just, so many teachers are kind of, my way or the highway, and it's like, why are you doing this? So, yeah. Anyway,
well,
that was a
and
tangent.
I like having it branch out where you get different results with different personalities and different minds that will shape your ideas and utilize it differently, where it blossoms into like this multi level thing, instead of just saying, hey, you got to do it the way I'll give you this information, but you can only use it the way that I say.
Mhm.
Well, what's the
Yeah.
point in that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's coveting information. That's also a form of coveting information. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
but it's we always have these high level conversations on Friday. Did you notice? Most people are out drinking in bars, and we're sitting here talking about like this highbrow,
Yeah.
this high level, higher frequency type stuff. So I honestly feel that at some point we'll this will make more sense later, when people start learning that, bludgeoning their way through the way they have been, that's not working, but you have
Mhm.
to give them the freedom to choose when to stop.
Yeah.
You
That's
can't
true.
just force it. You can't just force them to stop being the way they, because they won't learn. They won't
Yeah,
learn
that's
unless
true.
one day they wake up and say, hey, that's not working.
Yeah. That's very true. That's true. Well, if you do, do it or whatnot, I'll definitely be a part of it. Or hope to be a part of it.
Yeah,
But
I
thank you
mean,
for
and we'll
answering and
probably do
everything
more
on
of
on
these. This won't be the only X Files. The truth is out there. I think this will be a series. This will be like, we'll do many parts of this particular podcast. This is just the first one. So
Yeah, it's definitely a fascinating topic. So thank you for doing this and everything, and again,
oh,
just wishing you well and all that stuff too.
thank you so much, my dear, and for your kind words. I got them the other day, so thanks.
Okay.
Um, so who else has a question? And send me a request before we sign off. But just anything else, make a statement about something But like I said, we'll do this topic again, and we'll have like a part two, a part three. It'll be a series. So X Files, The Truth Is Out There will be a series, and I will do the teaching thing at some point, like online classes for this. That'll be in the future sometime when I get myself settled. But hold on, let me see who else wants to get on here. Miss Tanya, are you there? Tanya, hey,
Hi.
hey,
Hi.
you can
You know, like,
talk
uh,
regular. Just talk
uh,
regular.
okay.
Talk
I
low.
can't pass it up without talking. I always have stories to tell. I think a lot of it has to do also with people's experiences and what they see, or hear. My brother was in the military
Mm,
and he was stationed in White Plains, New Mexico.
mm,
And he wouldn't never say, but he said there's things that you have no idea about that the military has it under wraps. So you have to be confident in that. But there are things that people don't realize. You can't always take things at face value. There's always something hidden behind the scenes for a reason, though. Like you said. Um, but I want to ask you about, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Palladians. Can anybody see them? I mean, are they here within us, around us?
Well, again, I think it has to do with your aptitude for just allowing the physical world that you see in front of your eyes, that you allow yourself to split into allowing another dimension to enter your scope, and that
Mhm.
you can see it, because I think it has to do with um, again, letting control go as far as your vision, and just
Mhm.
letting yourself immerse yourself into another dimension and let yourself melt into it. So many people are afraid that if they do that, they'll get lost in that other dimension,
Right,
and that they won't be able to
right,
find their way back. So,
right.
I think it has to do with that. But why that particular group in general? Why are you asking?
Because many years ago, not too many, my daughter's an artist, and we went to this art thing. It was very local people just hanging their art on the wall and stuff. And there was a girl there, beautiful, blonde hair, blue eyes, just not of this earth looking. But when I talked to her and she sought me out, it was just felt like everything for what her words were, everything in the world connected. Everything you could see and you could feel connections. And
Hmm.
oh, this is why this is, and this is, everything connected. And I asked where she was from several times, and she said, I just have to get back to where I'm going. But I swear, it was not like anything I've ever talked to anybody.
Hmm.
And the feeling that, and just her whole vibe, and was so calming, and the words she said. And then I'm not, I don't draw at all, and I went home and I drew a picture of her. And then my daughter said, what is this? You don't draw, you know? It looks like, that looks just like a Palladian. And I said, didn't you see her there? I was talking to her. She said, no, no, I didn't see her. But it was just, she sought me out, and just the calmest words, but everything in the universe connected at that point. And that's when I started seeing connections with everything and everybody, how we're all really connected. And people don't realize this, but we really are, in many different ways. So
Well,
I was just wondering if, I
well,
can't believe I drew that, and it looks like.
and that's just one example of just, when people say, for instance, you look out of the corner of your eye and you see something, and then you look again and it's not there.
Mhm.
It has to do with releasing control of your scope in front of your eyes just for that moment, and not be afraid to allow yourself to immerse into another dimension just for, you know that time.
Mhm.
It's like walking through a mirror. Like, let's say there's a mirror and you walk through it and you end up in another dimension just briefly, and then you come back. You're not going to get lost in it unless you talk yourself.
No.
And the thing is that I do believe there are multiple dimensions working out different scenarios of the same life.
Mm-hmm.
If a
Mm-hmm.
different path were chosen, or a different, like you took a different turn right at that moment,
Right.
that
Right.
that this would be the ending to that thread. And there are
Right.
different threads playing out in different dimensions alongside this one.
Mm-hmm. I
And
believe that. Yeah.
it was a way for souls to simultaneously contribute to the Akashic records, where different pieces of your soul are acting out other endings to that particular thread,
Cool.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's how it would end up if you had
Mm-hmm.
taken that turn. So when people say, oh, if I had taken this turn, or if I had married this person, or if I had divorced this person, or whatever it is that you feel, would have changed your life if you had chosen this one thing. Well, there's
Mm-hmm.
another dimension where that's being lived out.
Right. Exactly. Right.
And so when we
Yep.
see people slipping dimensions and slipping into ours, it's because you needed to hear something right at that moment.
You're right. I did at that moment. Yeah. Wow. Mm-hmm.
That's
It
why.
just.
So it had nothing to do with Palladian this or that. It had to do
Mhm.
with, that was something you needed, and that energy was there in proximity to you, and took it upon themselves.
And after that, I see how things and people are connected, and it's fascinating. I learned a lot in just the few minutes there.
And
But
that,
yeah,
that your daughter never saw this person.
no, she never did. No,
Interesting.
no. Yeah.
Very
Yep.
interesting. Um, and I think that it was just meant for you. I mean, I've had
Mhm.
situations where I find myself, um, like, I'll see something or hear something and somebody else didn't hear it, or somebody else didn't see it. That happens
Mhm.
all the time to me, but it's like a regular occurrence with me. Like, I don't lose sleep over it, because I just know that I'm open to it. And if you're open
Right.
to it, this will happen.
I think I am more open to it because of how I grew up in that haunted house, where there were spirits, and I saw, and you know, my whole family were just more open to it, you know. But
Well,
yeah, I see like my old cat or something walk by sometimes, and then I look and it's gone. Stuff like that all the time.
and you have to understand that there are other dimensions where these beings actually exist, and they're carrying out that decision, or that thread, or that turn that they made that you didn't take.
Right, that's true. And I don't think people look at it as think, there's good and bad and everything. I don't think it's all bad or negative. I
Yeah,
mean,
some people are terrified if something
yeah,
happens, and they just don't know, and then they never want to see it again, and they act afraid to even go to sleep at night, and that's fine.
yeah,
But nothing's going to happen as long as you know who you are. I think having a sense of self,
definitely.
it strengthens your ability to dip in and out of dimensions like that.
Yeah, I think so. And I
I'm
think, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that in late with the whole alien talk, and why, you know,
Hmm.
I was not a good candidate for them, because um I have too much of a sense of myself where they wouldn't be able to impact me with whatever it was. You know what I mean? It's like I would
Yeah.
have to agree to that. And
Right. Right.
and they could study my psychic ability just fine without abducting me. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
they can be in this apartment. I'm fine with that. And
Mhm.
and they can monitor how I work and how I get my visions and whatever happens. But I have a certain self-protective mechanism that kicks in where you're not going to probe me for anything. Sorry, no probing, no probing, no probing. So, you know, but there are other people that you know have had that happen, and I've read for them. So,
Wow.
you know, and I
Yeah.
laugh at them and I don't make fun of them. I mean, it really happened, and
Mhm.
they cry, and they're
Yeah.
and like the one woman in Texas, I mean, she had a chip in her wrist,
My
and
gosh. Wow.
it was technology that the doctors didn't know about, so they sent it to the Pentagon.
That's amazing. Wow.
So they didn't know what else to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was an implant, and then, you know, I mean, eventually, but she had psychological trauma from that for the rest of the time I was talking to her.
From knowing that they found that in a wrist. Mm.
No, just from all her life
Oh
was
wow.
was influenced by that event,
Hmm. Wow.
you know, and she lived in fear of going to sleep and lived in
Well,
fear
that's
of
sad.
stepping outside her door, and
Mm.
you know, there were other things that were going on there, but you know, it's something where your personality and why you're chosen for you know, an encounter of the third kind is because
Right.
you have to be in tune with that and in sync with that event. And I would be I would I would be way too type A with them, like saying, okay, you don't want to do it this way, you want to do it this you know, like, why are you doing it like that? You need to be doing that. And I would just annoy them, so they avoid me. Um, so,
I think I'm far too stubborn. They wouldn't want me either.
you know, so I mean, I think you have to have a certain temperament for,
Right.
you know, and your brain will give off like a certain frequency and a certain I vibrate at a very high frequency, so that would compete with their frequencies, which are also very high.
No, that's true.
And
Yeah.
instead of getting someone to compete with, you know, they need to be able to work. So,
Right. Right.
you know,
Hmm.
I would be competing with them too much. I would be more on their level, and I think when they're looking to understand humans, they're looking to elevate us from the lower levels.
Oh,
Not
okay.
not from those who are already living at their highest levels.
Right. Gotcha.
They're looking for the lower levels to see how they can improve that for us as
Mhm.
a planet, as a collective.
Oh, okay.
But
That's
then
cool.
we go and experiment on them, and
Uh-huh. Yeah.
we do alien autopsies, and then we take it one step further. Oh, well, we have to make a documentary and a TV show out of it. You know, I mean, it's so disrespectful. Uh,
Mhm.
you know, if we went to their planet and did that, I mean, how would you feel? So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's true.
that's all I'm saying. Um, you always have stories. So
I do.
any other question, Miss Tanya?
No, I think that's it for tonight. It's good to hear you on the podcast again.
Yeah,
Good to have you back.
I took a week off. I'm sorry. I had
You
to.
know,
All right.
well
So
deserved.
I just love you guys to death. So if anybody else wants to get on here and just say their question or say what they know about something, go ahead and send me a request. Otherwise, I'm just going to wrap it up because we have gone 2 hours. Does it even seem like 2 hours? I mean, seriously, we went 2 hours on this one. This will not be the only X Files. The truth is out there. This will be a series. So I'm letting you guys know that if you have additional questions for the next one, just let me know when you want to schedule the next one, and I will try to do it that particular week. But we talked about a lot of stuff here. This is good. I like when you guys get excited. I like it. And everyone, thank you for your love and just holding me. I appreciate that, and more than you know. I will have this uploaded to all the platforms as usual, and YouTube will be last because I'm not really sure why. I think YouTube just with their algorithm, it's as long as the podcast is, so it takes 2 hours to upload. Where all the other platforms, it goes right away, like instantly. So I'm not really sure why it takes the longest on there, but I will do that, and then tomorrow morning when I wake up, I will make sure it's turned from private to public because they still haven't fixed that. And again, the truth is out there, you guys, and we're going to find it. And I love you, and we'll talk next week about, I don't know yet. We'll figure it out. If you guys have suggestions for a podcast, just send me a message and let me know what it is, and we'll try to get that in the queue. All right. Again, thank you so much for loving me, and I love you guys right back. And I will talk to you guys later. And hopefully, I honored Douglas with this whole thing because this was his idea. I hope I honored him in a way that he liked. And I miss you a lot. All right. So anyway, I am saying good night to you guys, and until next time. Bye bye.